Okay, we are going. Twitter is about microblogging. Our,
That's not showing up.
it's not, why not?
Because you got
Oh.
this.
Okay. Thank you. That's another essential component of recording a class is actually getting your web page up here. This is a blog in essence, and obviously you can make the post as long as you want. That's kind of a hallmark of a blog. It can be kind of scholarly. It could be brief. It could be and very easygoing, conversational, whatever you like. Twitter is microblogging. And so what that means is that you've got a very short window, just like an SMS, like a text message on your phone. You have the same 140 characters like you would text somebody. So the premium is on quick and abbreviations and so on. I think what that means is it's sort of like texting, except for it's not limited to the contact lists on your phone, obviously. This is the whole world as your contact list. I'm not sure that I really entirely understand or appreciate the limitation of 140 characters. It seems arbitrary to me, and I mean, I understand why it needs to be cut off somewhere, I think, but these things are short. So this is just a conversation I had a while ago. Yeah.
This may be apocryphal, but I've heard that it was 140 characters because that allows them to get underneath some FCC regulation.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't verified that independently, but I read that somewhere.
I don't know. I mean, that surprises me because there are so many other services that do this kind of communication in different ways with different limits, but perhaps that's it. Or maybe that was just kind of a random choice that they made. But I think you need more discussion. Other people think you can get your point across really quickly and crisply.
I think after a while, it becomes easier, and it's sort of surprising how much you can fit in, and it has punch. The shorter that it is.
It has punch.
And the recent, I don't know, there's been a couple of recent blog posts about how to make your tweets effective and stuff like that. And they suggest making it substantially shorter than 140, in part so that people can retweet
Yes.
and add their own thoughts.
That's exactly right. Yes.
It seems to tie into the whole soundbite theory with the politics, the whole thing, the idea of soundbites and slogans. So in a way, it's just use slogan.
If it's not less than 140 characters, then people aren't going to be able to quote it in the same way.
It doesn't fit on a bumper sticker.
It doesn't. So think of these as sort of your personal bumper stickers. Get the stuff out there quick and dirty. And like Janelle was saying, if I use probably 140 or 180 whole characters in this post, then somebody who wants to retweet me, should they agree with my perspective, won't be able to do it without editing back. And so the shorter the better. And that's a very practical reason for keeping it short. Here we've got, this is the difference. This is a blog. So if you also blog and you want to say something more substantial, then post it on your blog and then tweet about it. Facebook, I think I have a lot of thoughts about what Facebook is good for and what it's less good for. But I'll try to distill it this way. It seems to me like, number one, Facebook is much more oriented towards just general social. Twitter could be that. It could be following celebrities. It could be entirely a professional networking source. But it feels to me like, at least with my friends on Facebook, that, and there are some really smart intellectual types out there, but they're not so interested in engaging. and maybe that's just my friends, but it feels to me like a more purely social tool. Also, unlike a Facebook status update, Twitter is, well, let's see. It's not, I guess I would say that Facebook is much more, based on your prior acquaintance or your friendship with somebody, or, somebody that you know from your life. And you collect those people and you get a bunch of Facebook friends, whether they're really friends or not. Twitter is completely different. It's anybody. You can follow. Twitter is based on following, whereas Facebook is based on friendship and prior acquaintance. Okay. So you can develop a Twitter network that is entirely based on a subject or an interest of yours instead of who you happen to know or like. Do you agree with kind of that general sense of Facebook? Yeah.
I think Facebook's kind of changing though, because now you can subscribe to people without meeting their friends.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they're trying to take the best piece of Twitter, maybe. And do you think it's going to? How is it working? Have you been doing that at all, or?
No, I just know that that's how it works. I mean, you can see their updates, but you can't be friendly with them on Facebook.
Can you interact with them? Like, is it just a straight up kind of view of what they say, or maybe you're not sure?
I'm not sure how much interactiveness you have with them. I mean, I know you can't post on your wall, but I don't know if you can comment on status.
Yeah.
I think you can. I only subscribe to a couple of people on Facebook that I'm not friends with, and it tends to clutter up the feed. So they're like, I follow Dara Moskowitz, who does the food stuff for Minnesota Monthly, because I want to hear what she says about food. And I think I can. She's posted some things where I can reply to some of her stuff. But yeah, and I think she can also then control when I go to her page. Some better maybe than you can. Although now individually you can really fine tune a lot of that controls too. But yeah, I think, I don't know. For me, I do like Facebook for people that I know, in general, with a couple of exceptions. Now that I figured out how to turn off that ticker on the right, that was really driving me crazy.
Well, and I really can't. I'm unable to get people to be serious on Facebook at all. I mean, I think this is like a good example of, and I talked to Neil about this in advance. I seem to recall saying, I've got my biggest network is on Facebook, and I mean, I just feel awkward about posting work-related stuff. And he said, just go for it. Let's see what they have to say. Come on, there's a lot of people, and I have a lot of librarian friends on Facebook, and I put it out there, and I was mocked and ridiculed. And it was like an opportunity for people to sling one-liners at me, totally at my expense. So now I'm chastened, and I said, well, to hell with it. I'll put pictures up there and, tell people when I'm at the Dells on the water slide. But other work-related stuff, forget it. Okay, so if you didn't get my message on the blog, or if you didn't see in the syllabus, and you have not signed up for a Twitter account, or you have but you forgot what your account is, now's the time to log on and try to get in there. Make sure that you've got an active account. You can do this, or if you've never created a Twitter account before, just go to twitter.com. It's very easy to sign up. You cannot have multiple Twitter accounts associated with one email address, so that's sort of an irritant if you're wanting to do a lot of different Twitter accounts, which seems reasonable to me. But one thing you can do if you're a Gmail person, I don't know if you are aware of this trick, but one of my Gmail accounts is called SimonCam@Gmail. So this is one address, and one thing that you can do with it is you can say for Twitter, you can say simon.cam@gmail, or you can say simon@gmail, and these will all go to the exact same Gmail inbox, but for Twitter purposes, they're completely different. So it's sort of like getting a free bunch of accounts on the same Gmail account. That can come in handy here. All right. So log on, create an account. I created an account this morning. SMC05002 means absolutely nothing except for my initials. No one would know me there by that. And if you're feeling like I don't necessarily want to use my name on there, that's completely fine. I understand that. So just, if you want to come up with something very anonymous, then by all means do that. The shorter the better. The shorter the better, because everything you post it will take away the number of characters that you have in your Twitter handle. Get started very quick. Naturally, I would want to subscribe to Subway restaurants and Team Drizzy. I don't know why they felt that these would be, the best ones for me. An offer to find contacts. This is more Facebook-like. Are any of your friends on Twitter? Identify them. I don't care about my friends on Twitter. I don't want my friends on Twitter. I want other people on Twitter. I want to use this for professional purposes, for subject matter purposes. So ignore all that stuff. And then I tweet. My first tweet, is anybody out there? Naturally, the answer is no. There's nobody out there. And the reason that there's nobody out there is because I'm not following anybody and I have no followers. So, although this, it's out there in the ether, but who cares? Nobody cares about it. The only way people are going to start caring about what I have to say is if I have some followers. And getting followers is an interesting business. We will talk about. All right. So I posted my first tweet, which is here. You can see it. And I've included this hashtag. A hashtag is a label that you can use to categorize your tweets and that anybody else in the world can use to converse with you about a particular subject. The hashtag could be as broad as like music, and you could subscribe to a hashtag about music and see the gazillions of tweets on that subject sort of zooming by. Or you can, what I like to do is create something that's unique and then kind of invite a group of people to talk on it. Like I'm inviting you guys to talk on this hashtag, WMCL Tech. No one else is using it at the moment, so we can use it. We can use anything we want.
Hashtags are also a way to get followers, because if you just click on that link, then you can see all the tweets that use that same hashtag. So if you use a hashtag like #SCOTUS to mean Supreme Court in the United States, and people click on that and they see that you're tweeting about it, they might want to follow you. I wouldn't say do that just for that, but that's one way you can get some more people to know what you're tweeting about and maybe be interested in you.
Absolutely. Sometimes you'll see at the end of a tweet, somebody will put a couple of hashtags there. And sometimes you'll see like this, or people will just put the hashtag in front of a word that flows naturally within the text of the tweet. Yes?
And my friend Tyler uses the hashtag sarcastically, like in my post.
Yes.
Seen where it can be pound, what a hypocrite.
Yes, exactly. You see that a lot. I've never ever done that. I keep waiting for the right creative burst of. I can't do it. I can't think of. But everybody seems to have like a. Maybe that's why I hate Facebook, because I can never come up with like the pithy one-liners. I can't come up with the pithy, funny hashtags either, like everybody else. You do that sometimes, don't you? Don't you do like this funny, sarcastic hashtags from time to time?
I know a funny use for hashtags is when people come up with these memes. Can you think of any? Where they say, replace a word in a movie with some other word, and then they can't think of any really good ones, but there's some funny things
Right.
out there that you can do with hashtags.
Well, so for our purposes, we're going to be following WMCL Tech. It's case insensitive. I just put it that way because it reads easier for me. You can go to Twitter, search for the hashtag WMCL Tech, and then you'll see all the tweets that are on that subject. And please do tweet if there's something that you want to share, comment, or suggest or complain during the course of this class or afterwards. And then you can save it. There's just a button. You'll see a button here, save this search. And then whenever you go to Twitter after that, or however you monitor your Twitter account, you'll be able to find all that stuff really easily and get the latest news on that hashtag. Here's another one. This is just an example of how some hashtags take on a life of their own and become meaningful. They can be either unique and something random and arbitrary like we've done for this class, or it could be that a lot of people just end up using law firms, and a lot of small firm, or small firm I think is another one. So if you're in that line of work and you're interested to hear what other lawyers are doing, you could save something like that. You'll see, so here's an example for the hashtag law firm, and similarly you can save this search. And then you see what happens on Twitter.com. We'll talk about other ways of accessing your Twitter information, but on Twitter.com, then you have on your saved searches WMCL Tech, law firm, and anything else that you might want. Okay, right. And here's our WMCL Tech. And now there should be a number of other things by now, hopefully. At least 4 or 5 things. All right. One of the things that you might want to do, or I hope you do, in the course of trying this out today and later, is you'll meet your peers in this class, your colleagues in the class, and you can follow them. So anytime somebody comes up and uses the hashtag, you can go to click on their profile and follow them. So we'll be following each other if you like. Best way to get followers, I think, is to start following people or accounts. And Janelle's going to talk about how to find really interesting accounts that are related to whatever subject you might care about in a little bit. But and this brings up another point. Janelle is at JK Bytes, and she's also at Burger Library. And she'll talk more about how the personalities are different and how they bleed into one another, and what, it may speak to more of a personal thing versus a professional thing. But if you follow Burger Library, you start making those connections, especially if you're interested and you contribute and reply. Okay, so when I do, as soon as I add Burger Library, I'll start seeing Janelle's tweets on my timeline. So I've got my only 2 tweets here with this account, but I also see that Janelle has retweeted how to pick your LinkedIn profile, and Janelle has retweeted something else about Data and Transparency Conference. This one looks much more interesting than the Data Transparency, but that's probably just me. So then that's what the timeline is. Everybody you're following and everything they post just comes jumbling into your basic timeline. Any questions about this? You're all good? All right. Oh, and when you start, you're an egg. I don't really care what your picture is, but other people will. I think that I see this egg nowadays, and I assume that it's a spammer. Either that, or it's like a newbie, and I'm not so interested. So put something in there, and for God's sake, you can. Right. So I found Voldemort's picture, and that could be me, or it could be you. And actually,
Isn't there a Voldemort?
Yeah. Oh. Well, there's probably
There's
probably
Lord
2 or
Voldemort
3.
Twitter.
Yes, exactly.
Twitter.
Yes, and I wanted to mention this one. My friend Courtney introduced me to this website, which I just think is fantastic. Maybe I'm the last one to know about it. four Fs and found, and it's like a sequence of the most interesting images and graphics that you see on the web. Just some of them are maybe more fascinating to you than others, but and some GIFs too. I love that. That guy is so cool. Man. It's great. But anyway, so you can, well, it would be stealing, so it would be wrong. But you could find an image
Find some that
there.
have Creative Commons licenses attached
Yes,
to them.
exactly. Anyway, it's a good website, and they've got a great app. It's even better than their website because it's just the pictures. And meanwhile, let's see, are there any... Oh, we can just click here and see if anybody has posted anything on our... Yeah. Okay, so we've got a handful of things on our hashtag. Cool. All right, so please join in. All right, what do we got here? Use of Twitter is up a lot in the past couple of years. So the question of the moment, what interests me greatly is it just faddish? Like everybody suddenly has to follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Is there something more real to it, or is it just another time suck for lawyers? And this is what Janelle is going to talk about for a little while. Then I'll be back a bit later. And we'll be tweeting too. With our phones, we're not just checking email. We're tweeting now. This is all on the up and up.
Okay, so Simon and I did a CLE a few weeks ago for attorneys to tell them why they might want to tweet, who else is out there tweeting, and so I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, and then I also added some slides, some ways to find other people who are tweeting about things that you specifically are interested in. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I think probably for lawyers, the biggest reason to tweet is the marketing factor. Get your firms, if you're doing it for a firm, or if you're a solo practitioner, getting your name out there. This Moss and Barnett is a local firm, and they are actually tweeting. They are tooting their own horn there, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You got to get it out there. I think you can think of one of the sources I read when I was researching this is that you can think of Twitter sort of like a cocktail party. So it's got this fun aspect to it, but there's also an underlying marketing aspect. So always keep that in your mind. You should probably pay attention to the bio that you create. You're limited. You have more than 140. I think it's 160 characters. So make the words count. If you have a firm website, you don't need to put that in your bio because there's a separate line to do that. It's kind of funny, a lot of lawyers will put disclaimers in their tweet. Tweets are my own, not tweeting for my employer, things like that. I have read posts that suggest against that, but as lawyers, we love disclaimers, so I think most lawyers don't listen to that, and they will put disclaimers in their bio. But know that it takes up space. So if you can come up, I don't know, when I'm setting up these new social media accounts, one of the hardest things for me is to come up with something that's sort of pithy to say, but it is kind of a cliche that people will pay attention to that when deciding whether or not to follow you. This is not going forward. How do I make it go forward? This is over here?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So networking, again, your cocktail party. You can reply to people who tweet at you. And you can see in this one, this is, I don't know who this Shanta person is, but Mesh Mesher and Spence replied to her saying good morning to you too. So you can, and the whole point of Twitter is really to make these interactions and these connections. That's kind of the point of social media in general, but for Twitter it's really important. And the other people expect it with Twitter more than maybe some of the other social media things where you really kind of do have to know the people. People who have their Twitter account publicly out there expect people who they don't know in real life to be following them and replying to them, as long as you're thoughtful and you're not just spouting out nonsense. Some of you probably already know this, but when you do an @reply, the only people that will see this in their timeline is if they follow both this person and you. So a lot of times you'll see people who will start it with an @ but then they'll put like a period before it, because if you have a period before it, then everybody who's following Meshbasher will also see that. I don't like to put the period in front of there. I try, if I want the whole world to see my @reply, I would say, good morning, this person, then everybody in my thing would see it. Perhaps for this tweet, it's not important that anybody besides Sean to see that, but that's just a little thing to be aware of when you are replying to people.
Can you say anything about the difference between a direct message and an reply?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you hear about the? Sorry, did you hear about the sports writer in Cleveland who got taken off of the Cleveland Browns beat because he essentially posted something in a public way that was meant to be a direct message to another person, and I don't know whether it was a misunderstanding of the functionality or if it was just a mistake in terms of what button to press. But he ended up writing something very inflammatory, arguably, and then he got taken off the beat, which was a pretty
yes. With the @reply, although people won't see it in their timelines, if they go to Meshbasher and look at their profile page, they will see that. I believe that's how Representative Weiner got in trouble.
Yes.
That he meant to send a direct message, a DM. When you're in Twitter, there's a way to direct message individuals, but I think he did an @reply.
So it's a kind of slightly important distinction.
Yes, it's a very important distinction.
Of your message.
Although again, and I think we're talking about this next week, when you're developing your social identity and your social voice, I personally would never direct message somebody, even though they're the only person who's going to see it, would never direct message somebody something that I wouldn't be okay with the whole world seeing. Because first of all, once you direct message them, they can do whatever they want with it, right? But in case you make a mistake or Twitter has some sort of glitch and it goes, I would not use direct messages for really important, confidential, for your eyes only information. Although theoretically it will only go to that one person you send it to. I use direct messages when I'm, when a friend says something like, oh my gosh, I've had a really horrible day. Then I'll direct message them and say, are you okay? What's going on? Right? Because not everybody needs to see that. But if, God forbid, everybody did see that, it'd be okay.
Well, I think that's true, right? Also, not just Twitter.
Yeah.
Be careful what you say.
Yeah, in general with my social media, if I wouldn't say it to my grandma, I don't put it out there. And I think everybody has to have their own comfort level with that. And I'm not saying that that's how you guys have to approach it, but I think you should think about how you're going to approach it and have sort of a thoughtful way of figuring that out.
Which is why it's good to have a second account that is anonymous, because then you can be the evil you and not worry about it so much, and not have to kind of, be the least common denominator you. You know what I mean? So,
but be aware that people could maybe figure out who the evil you is.
That's true. That's true.
Another reason for tweeting is current awareness. The death of Osama bin Laden broke on Twitter. I believe the death of Kim Jong-il also broke on Twitter. There's probably no better place to learn about new news events first. If you log onto Twitter, you'll see these trending stories on the side. And that's like what's currently being tweeted about a lot. Most of them I found are sort of inane pop culture items, but every once in a while when something big happens, that'll blow up that way. And that's also where hashtags can fit in too. So yeah, you will get real news events and you might hear it first on Twitter. And they might be events that are important to you as a firm. I assume that Gray Plant has some sort of, banking practice that they are interested in this, or they think the people who follow them will be interested in, or their clients are interested in it. I keep forgetting to go this one here. You might want to keep tabs on clients, either to, as Lockridge is doing here, instead of tooting their own horn, tooting the horn of one of their clients. Or just if your client has a Twitter feed, you might want to know what they're tweeting about for litigation purposes. So you can, again, you can publicize what your clients are doing here, which looks good to your clients. It might look good to potential clients. Hey, the firm is publicizing their other client stuff. Maybe they'll do the same for me. Yes?
It's probably has more to do with Facebook, but one of the attorneys that I work for actually follows, is friends with one of the clients on Facebook, and got into a situation where Facebook was getting this client into trouble. It was a family law situation, and one of the other side was friends with her on Facebook. So the attorney just recommended, looked at her Facebook page, and then said, just called the client and said, tear down your Facebook page.
You have to be really careful with doing that, because there was a recent case where somebody did just that, and they got, because there was a lawsuit pending or something, so there's spoliation issues involved in that too. That if you advise a client to take something down when you've got litigation going on, that can be a violation of the I think it's the discovery rules. So be careful. But yeah, you want to know what your clients are doing and what they've got up there.
So, and what about digging for dirt?
Digging for dirt, yes. There's a lot of literature about out there on, as a litigator, what you can, or even as an employer hiring people, what you can and cannot do with the Facebook information that you find. And I assume it would hold true for Twitter as well. I think right now Twitter's not out there so much, is because Facebook, you can definitely tell who it is. There's pictures and all that kind of stuff, and it's older than Twitter. So, but I think the analogy is the same for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus. That if your opposing party has an open Facebook page, hey, I think you can go nuts.
Yeah.
If they don't, or an open Twitter page, if they don't, you got to be careful about friending them or connecting with them for the purposes of digging for information, and that holds true for hiring as well. And at the I don't know if it's the ABA or the Minnesota Bar Association, which has promulgated or suggested some ethics rules for law firms about uses of Facebook in their hiring processes. So you want to know what those are, both in maintaining your own Twitter and Facebook presence, and as an attorney with your clients who may be doing that. Yes, ma'am.
I know the Florida Bar Association has been very proactive in making social media ethics rules. And I've read some lawyer bloggers who think that they really don't even understand social media very well, but they're trying to get out ahead of it. But it's a situation where it's hard to comply with some of these rules, especially around the advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of law firm blogging is now, in theory, could run afoul of these rules.
Yeah, and I'll be talking about that particular part of it in a little bit. But yeah, and really pay attention to what your local bar says, even because it's Kevin O'Keefe, right, who's always complaining about this bar association doesn't know what it's doing. Well, that might be fine, but if that's the bar association that you're a member of, you got to know what their rules are.
Kevin O'Keefe, the Real Lawyers.
Yes, and it's a very good blog, but he is sort of, and he is just defensive about social media.
That would be a good one for you guys to know about. That he's a person who writes good stuff, compelling stuff about lawyers' use of blogs and other social media. Real Lawyers Have Blogs.com or something like that. Kevin O'Keefe.
Yeah, there was and the example I gave when we gave the CLE on this keeping tabs on client is in 2007, a woman, just a random woman, complained about her rental management company, something about mold or something like that, and the management company sued her for defamation. The case was eventually thrown out, but it took a while. So that kind of thing is out there and can happen. And she wasn't famous. She had and the funny thing is, the ironic thing is, she had 10 followers at the time. But once Mashable got a hold of it and made it a story, then she had tons of people following her. I believe her Twitter account is now dead. But that's just sort of a, you want to know if your clients are tweeting, you want to know what they're tweeting about. Another reason to tweet is research. You wouldn't want to make Twitter your end stop for your research needs, but I don't think it's a bad first step, especially if you're talking about newer technology-driven issues. I did a search, and this is a couple weeks old now, for patent law, and I got these were the results that I have. And then you can, and some of them are specifically about IP law. Some of them might be IP lawyers. Obviously, you'd want to find out who this person is before you wouldn't want to take whatever they said as gold. But it can be a really quick way to do to get a couple of leads on a topic. And related to that is crowdsourcing issues. You can put a question out there, and Simon does this a lot. Hey followers, what do you think about this? And you'll get responses. So this person, and I should say too that all of these screenshots that I have up here are Minnesota attorneys or Minnesota law firms. So to show you that this is how attorneys are using this. Did you want to say anything about crowdsourcing? I know that's one of your favorites.
No, it's been really effective for me, much more so than Facebook. So I like Twitter for that a lot. But I think, and one of the things we'll talk about eventually is whatever your interest is or your area, there's going to be some place where the conversations are happening. Sometimes that's Twitter. Sometimes it's in unusual, surprising places. I'm interested in Web 2.0 generally and higher education. It turns out there's a super active discussion forum on LinkedIn. LinkedIn I don't really even use very actively, but every day I get a daily digest with about 50 posts from that one forum. It just happened to have taken off there. Sometimes they're on third-party websites, sometimes it's on Twitter, sometimes it's on Facebook, and you need to be aware of where those conversations are happening because that's where you want to be in part, knowing who's saying what and participating, getting your name out there. But Twitter works for me. Yeah.
And I think it's because Twitter is more topically based than friend based. And that might be why you're getting more thoughtful replies on Twitter than you are on Facebook.
That's right.
I think this is one of the biggest things for attorneys, or definitely for librarians, to follow conferences. This is where hashtags play a really big part. Often, especially if it's a tech-related conference, there'll be an announcement before that even starts that we're using this hashtag, and then everybody who tweets and attends this conference, or even if they're not attending the conference, will use that hashtag if they have something to say about the conference. So you can attend meetings or little breakout sessions that you aren't actually physically present for.
That is a great way of getting followers and making connections. Every time I'm at a conference and I'm on Twitter, you feel a kinship with the 10% of the people in the room who are also tweeting, and you end up with these good conversations and inevitably a lot of new followers, and you're following some new people as well. It's great. I would think that at any CLE, it's a possibility. It's in particular if it's a big room with a lot of people or a big online CLE, try to find out who's there and tweet with them about it.
And there are certain, instead of using the Twitter, the main Twitter interface, and Simon will talk about this eventually, there are other applications that you can use that make it really easy to keep track of all your hashtags and follow them so you don't have all your other people that you're following mixed up in that hashtag conversation. Finally, I think it's fun. It's definitely doesn't click with everybody, and that's not a bad thing or anything to say about those people, but I have a really good time doing it. And this is a law firm, and you can tweet fun things even if you're a law firm. And sometimes there's just these little funny or poignant moments that happen to you in the middle of the day, and you just want to share it with people, and Twitter allows you to do that. Although, of course, not everything that everybody tweets is going to be some sort of golden nugget. Quickly, who else is tweeting? These are mostly local, but some of these are just big national law firms that are tweeting. I wanted to point out, I don't know if you can see it, the Cravath disclaimer. It says content may include attorney advertising, and yet at least when I did this, they didn't have any tweets. So they have the disclaimer there, even though they're not actually doing anything. And I thought that was funny. Locally, it seems like Faegre and Benson is the most prolific law firm tweeter. They started tweeting about a year ago. But even, I mean, law firms are sort of conservative about this. Even prolific ones don't really tweet that often. If you are tweeting for your firm or tweeting for your professional presence, you might want to look at some of them and see what they're doing and see what you like and what you don't like. And here are some individual local attorneys that are tweeting. And over on the left, you'll see I have, will they be able to access this and then click on the links?
Yes.
Okay, so these are hyperlinks, local law firm Twitter directories that give, you know, just a list of local attorneys who are tweeting that you can find. And here's some of them there. The individual attorneys are much more prolific and interesting, I think, than the law firms themselves. But I don't think, they seem more like a real person, which makes sense. But I don't think it's impossible to seem like a real person when you're a firm, as evidenced by that tweet regarding Thomas Edison. Local organizations and law-related entities tweet a lot. There are a lot. There used to be a directory of government entities that tweeted, and they're all over the place, and they usually have really good information. I really like the Law Library of Congress. The Minnesota State Law Library has a lot of good stuff. And the Justice Department disclaimer I also like, and I wanted to point out, it says, DOJ does not collect comments or messages through this account. Learn more at justice.gov/privacy. I just thought that was a funny disclaimer that they were, you know, wanted to assuage your fears that they might be, you know, checking up on you via Twitter. There's some other organizations or nonprofits that you might be interested in, particularly the local bar associations and the National Bar Association. A lot of politicians have Twitter accounts. We talked a bit earlier about Representative Weiner. Your clients, definitely a lot of corporations have Twitter accounts. That also sometimes gets them in trouble. There was recently something about McDonald's. Sometimes when the corporations try to be cutesy with Twitter, it completely backfires on them. I don't have a picture of the Zappos avatar up there, but I think Zappos is sort of considered the gold standard of corporate social media use. Not maybe one of the reasons it's suggested that you follow them. They are, I follow Zappos. They have fun tweets. It's not all about, well, I mean, I guess it is all about selling their brand, but it's not obvious necessarily that that's what they're doing.
Do you buy shoes from Zappos?
I do, but I did before. You get them
follow
like
Zappos?
the next day. It's amazing. Do any of you use Zappos? Seriously, you order something and they come the next day. I don't know how they do it.
I think
And
the
you have a
marketing
year
has
to return
worked.
it. What?
I think the marketing has worked. Janelle is now
I do not
a
work. I do not work for Zappos, and I think corporations use Twitter as a customer service method. One time, as me, not as Burger Library, tweeted. I was complaining about Westlaw Next, and within a couple of hours, I got an email at my work email address, which is not connected to my personal Twitter account. From somebody at Westlaw, like explaining what I was complaining about, which kind of freaked me out. I would have expected an @ reply from them, or even maybe a direct message, but they like looked for me in, you know, as one of their users and emailed I just thought that was a little bit creepy, and I did not appreciate it. So, you know, but I'm sure they think on their end, well, we're being responsive to our customers, so. And I guess they are. Okay, so how do I find these interesting people to follow? And so there's one way you can do it is the Twitter search box. It shows up, it's a little microphone here, and you can put something in. Here I just put in law librarians, but you could put in, you know, I don't know, real estate attorneys or something like that. I do not like the Twitter search. I don't think it's very good, but, you know, you can start there. There is also a custom Google search. If you Google Twitter search, that you can try out and search for similar things there. This is a screenshot of the same search that I did before, law librarians. Now these first 4 are ads. It's hard to see this little line, but these are ads. But here, this is actually somebody that I actually follow, and he's made a list of law librarians. Which, are you talking about that later?
Lists.
You can create lists when you have a lot of followers and you want to like maybe segregate them. Not that you tweet them different things, but if you follow like a bunch of law librarians and a bunch of lawyers and you for some reason want to go back and only look at one of those groups, you can do that. And then other people, if you make those lists public, other people can follow those lists. So that's what Mark Roche has done here. So the Google Twitter search might be more effective than the Twitter search. But you should probably do both, just because you'll get different results, and some of them might, be equally good from each list. So another, probably one of the best ways to find interesting people to follow on Twitter is, you guys talked about blogs last week, right? So you're following blogs, or you follow blogs anyway. Almost everybody who has a blog has a Twitter account, and they will, promote their blog as one of the things that they do with their Twitter account. So go to that person. If there's somebody you like who's blogging, go to their blog and find their Twitter accounts. 3 Geeks and a Law blog is actually a really good blog for law and tech issues. If you guys aren't following them, you maybe should. So as a tiny little sideline, you might be wondering, well, okay, so what are some ways to find interesting blogs? And here, this is just a snapshot of a research guide that the librarians here have created. Again, this is hyperlinked. If you click on this, you'll go to the actual research guide. But there are ways, there are even like these 2 searches here, blog, B-L-A-W-G, and blog search from Justia will search just legal blogs. So there's ways to find interesting legal-related blogs that way, and then find their Twitter feeds. There are also Twitter directories, and there are at least 3 Twitter directories that are focused on lawyers and legal issues. LegalBirds, TweetLaw, and LexTweet. And LexTweet is part of that whole LexBlog thing that Kevin O'Keefe's blog is part of, and it's somehow connected with Lexis, so just know that. So what you can do on any of these is, and we follow as a big general Twitter directory, but they also have, and you can search for attorney as a tag and then get attorneys that way. What you can do on these directories is search for people, but you can also then add yourself to the directory so that people who are, in the directory or looking for other people to follow can then find you there too. There are actually, at least dozens, if not hundreds, of Twitter directories. If you Google Twitter directories, you'll get a ton of them. But the 3 that I have there, and we follow as big too, are the biggest and the biggest legal ones that I know about specifically. And they're often LegalBirds, and LegalBirds is really good about like subdividing it into topics. So it's all legal supposedly, but then they have other legal topics that if you want to just follow, the real estate tweeters or something like that. And it's self-described, so I could describe myself as anything and not really be that. So you might then learn that I'm not really tweeting about what I say I'm going to tweet about. So keep that in mind. There are also Twitter lists, ways to find Twitter lists, which I mentioned before. TweetDeck, which is a Twitter application that I think Simon will talk about later, used to have a directory. And I think once it became part of Twitter, it got rid of its directory, which is kind of too bad. But Listorious down here is a directory of lists, and it also has directories of people too. So you can find, you can put in something that you think a person might have named their list, like attorneys or law librarians or academics or whatever, and then you can search for that there. This, can you see this Google search here? If you do site:/twitter.com/ /*/whatever. That's another way you can search for lists. I put immigration here, so I'm getting lists. You can see that this person, I don't know who NALEO is, but this Twitter, this is their immigration list. So then I can look at that and see if I want to follow those people or follow the whole list.
So that anything after the slash is in the title of a list?
Yes.
Or that's really, really interesting.
It might have to be exact because you can see that at least these first it's immigration. It's not.
Immigration lawyer.
Yeah.
And can you do that kind of thing with just terms?
Yes, and in fact, if you use non-legal terms, you get much. Like I tried it with sports, and there was like hundreds of results. Immigration was not as.
Do you guys know what have you seen this kind of like Google search structure before? So you can limit to any site. It could be twitter.com, that's a good example, or any site that you care about, wmitchell.edu or nytimes.com, or some subset of those. And the asterisk is kind of it's very much like the terms and connectors queries that you may be used to on Lexis or Westlaw. In this case, it's basically saying anything can go here, whatever term or terms there.
The site search. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, the site search allows you to do a custom Google search of any website. So if they have no inherent search functionality, you can use Google to search just that website.
And what I do all the time is site:/.gov or site:/.edu. So then I'm searching only domains that have .gov, only government websites or educational websites.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. Oh, and Google also. If you're, this is a aside, but if there are a bunch of like a small collection of websites that you search from time to time, like for example, I search for information in law school websites. If I want to know if somebody else had taught a class on whatever, I can create a custom Google search box with any number of web domains that I want to collect. And then the search will only run in those. It's my personal Google search of whichever websites I want. That comes up from time to time.
And then finally, probably the best way to find interesting people to follow on Twitter is to look at the people that you're following and see who they're following, and sometimes who's following them. So I put Simon's up here, and here are, when I had to cut the screen, these were just the first few people that he was following. Here's somebody who's interested in criminal fraud. He's a law professor. Here's somebody who's looking at legal market. So if you know that Simon tweets things that you're interested in, or anybody else, go look at their lists, or look at who's following them, or who they're following. If Simon had lists, you can see this list here, then you could click on that, and do you have lists?
Mm-hmm.
You could,
Well,
if he has public lists, then you click on that and you can see his lists. So how he's organized the people that he follows. And you can, if you make a list, you can make it private too, so that people can't do that.
Tweets is so much nicer than twits.
Okay, so now you know why you want to tweet. You know who you're going to follow. So what are you going to tweet? If you blog, you should promote your blog on Twitter. I think it's generally accepted that you might tweet your post more than once in a day, but beware of that. If you just keep tweeting, if you just keep pimping your own blog, then people are going to get sick of you. You will want to use URL shorteners because the URL that is attached to most things is way too long. You don't want to waste, space is a premium. You don't want to waste it. Bit.ly is good. If you use Hootsuite for your Twitter client, which Simon will talk about, it automatically creates a shortener. Actually, I think now Twitter's interface will automatically shorten URLs too. Although I don't like how they look sometimes. And you might want to use Bit.ly or one of the other ones because you might want to keep track of how many people click on your links. So there might be reasons not to use Twitter's interface.
Bit.ly also allows you to customize it. So instead of just a random characters, you could do Bitly, ethics rules or something like that. So it actually is meaningful.
Yeah.
Gives people an idea of why they would want to click on that link.
But again, ethics rules is going to be longer than that. So keep it in mind.
Right.
Do a cost benefit analysis of what you want to. And though you should obviously tweet your blog posts, don't look at Twitter as just a place to self-promote. People will get turned off and they will stop following you. Firm news. Again, we sort of saw this earlier with, I can't remember what law firm it is, but here Faegre and Benson is saying, hey, we're filing suit here. Hey, we won a suit here. Another point that's sort of related to this is that you can set up, and you probably should set up. I encourage everybody to set up a Google alert on your own name, and definitely when you're representing clients, you should set up Google alerts on your client's name, so that almost as soon as somebody in the free web posts something about you or them, you will get an alert, and if it's good, you can tweet it. If it's bad, you'll probably want to deal with that too in some way or another, although you probably won't want to tweet it. Yes?
Can you explain how to set up a Google?
Did you guys talk about RSS feeds?
We haven't, no. Can I just say like a quick thing about that?
Sure.
What we're going to talk about searching and research a little bit later in the term, but just a quick tidbit on that. Oh my gosh, my cursor is just moving on its own. It's a bad sign.
Is
So-
it over here?
No,
No.
it's actually the trackpad. So
Okay.
if you go to alerts.google.com, this is the easiest way to set up something like this. You can put in whatever you want, obviously. Then the result type would be things like, blogs versus news, that sort of thing. Yeah, news, blogs, videos, all Google Books, and so on. I mean, it really is. I'd say it's practically criminal not to be setting up a Google alert for yourself, just because people, who knows what people are out there saying. You ought to know when your name comes up. You ought to know what people are saying about your clients or people you might want to represent, that kind of thing. And then you can have it delivered either by email or by, if you use Google Reader or some other RSS reader, you can have it come up as a feed, and then you can feed it into your reader so that the stuff just comes automatically and it's archived for you there. But we'll talk more about that stuff a little bit later. Any questions about Google?
We
Yeah.
need to take a break today.
Yeah, I know. Do you have like just 2 more slides or something? Or well, why don't we take 10 minutes? Okay. Yeah, so let's take 10 minutes. Be back at 1:15.
Promote that so that people who might be clients or might be, counsel wanting to get together with you for some reason, then has a personal reason that they might be interested in you, something other than the work that you do. You can also promote causes that are important to you that way. Now it's not going forward.
Oh, it's not. There you go. Oh,
I can't make it go forward.
okay.
Okay. Conferences, CLEs, seminars, we talked about this when we talked about what you might find on Twitter. This is a seminar that Winthrop and Weinstein, or a discussion or something, that they were hosting. So they tweeted about it extensively on, sometime last April. If you're giving a CLE, if you're presenting a CLE, you might want to have a colleague come in and tweet the stuff that you're presenting. Another way to get out there the work that you're doing, the things that you're interested in, promotes you and the practice that you do. Of course, you want to be mindful not to give legal advice when you're doing that. Relevant news items, especially if the news story is germane to your practice. And as I said before, when I'm tweeting news items, I try to add something to the conversation about why I'm tweeting this or why people might want to think it's interesting. Try to add a hashtag maybe so that other people who are interested in the same topic might come across it. Oops. Okay. Then the ethics is at the end, right? All right. Back to you, Simon.
Thanks. So this is a view of my timeline. Just a little bit of nuts and bolts. Here are a few things that came in that are very informational in nature. Here you see the hashtags. Here you see these are like compressed links, whatever you call it, like Bitly, like and so on, those kinds of things. If I like something here, I can retweet it. A retweet is one of the great Twitter innovations. The idea, you can see here, the idea, of course, is that, like, for this one, top ed tech trends of 2011, I like that. I find it interesting, so I can retweet it. When I retweet it, depending on what software you're using or whether you're using the Twitter website, it will indicate that you've done that. A lot of times I'll add my own opinion to it or a few words of why I think it's interesting. And that's how these messages get more or less viral on Twitter, is that people are retweeting to their followers what they find interesting. Of course, not all retweets are created equal. There's Sarah might not care so much that my 150 followers know about her post, but I care that Rob's 1,860 followers know about my post. So there's a little self-interest about, who are the people who are so active and they have so many followers and people pay attention to what they say. And then you might want to think about paying attention to what they're writing and contributing to that, and they'll notice you a little bit. Of course, Rob tweets so much that I tend to think that nobody really cares after a while, but he has built up a lot of followers, and I think you get the point. One thing that you can do that I think is effective and is that you can actually just be nice to people for no apparent reason. If you like something, you can go out and in a public way say, hey, this is really cool, thank you. One of the things that I like is in Fastcase. I like to support Fastcase because, number one, it's not Lexus and it's not Westlaw. Number two, it's a nominal cost to you as a practitioner in Minnesota. If you're a member of the Minnesota Bar, you get access to this as part of your membership. They have a really good and I think underutilized case law finding tool, which is called, I think, an interactive timeline, and maybe we'll look at it later. But anyway, I love it. I think it's very visual and very powerful. And I know Ed, and so I just said, hey, I think this is really cool. And then he retweets it, and it's good feelings. Everybody's happy. It's love and roses and all of that stuff. It's great. Okay, so Sarah, right, actually Janelle already mentioned this, but super terrific way to find people to follow is really digging into the people that you respect, the people that they're following. And so now my interests are much more varied than they used to be. I started off with a bunch of librarians. Sorry, but after a while they're posting about the same stuff and whatever, but then there are a few weird librarians, and I look at the weird librarians list of people that I've never heard of on different subjects, and suddenly I'm following people who are interested in design stuff and web stuff and tactical assault weapons stuff and flashlights and whatever it is. I realize, oh my God, there are lots of weird and interesting people that relate in one way or another to the stuff that I'm doing, and you get a much more interesting, diverse perspective on things. Here are some of the people that I found through Glassmeyer. This is my timeline again. Oh yeah, and I guess we sort of ran through this. One of the wonderful things that was mentioned a little bit is that, like Bitly, and Neil said before, you can customize these things. Like, for example, let's see. I don't know if you remember here, the very first slide. this is a bit.ly shortened link with a customized URL, WMCL Tech, j.mp/WMCL Tech, same as our Twitter hashtag. All of our bookmarks and all the sites that we've been talking about are bookmarked there, and that's a thing that you can do with bit.ly, but also, now I have to forward 76 slides ahead. How do I do that?
If you right click,
Oh, do I? Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Good Lord. All right, so yeah, and then the other good reason to use a service like bit.ly is because you know if you're making some kind of an impact. If you tweet something that people like, they'll click on it. But without using a URL service like this, you don't really know necessarily what they're clicking on, from where they're clicking, and so on. So this is just what's a computer trick you think everyone should know from a website called Reddit that maybe you already know about, but I love and use a lot for different purposes. And I find out that when I tweeted this and shortened it, that there are 220 total clicks on this shortened link, 31 of which came from my tweet, one way or another. And that's kind of, it's interesting to see how that plays out and what sorts of tweets make an impact to your followers and which ones are ignored entirely. Okay, back to the timeline. Oh, and here's the hashtag education. You find great stuff just by following the hashtags you see in your timeline. Oh yeah, education is a relevant thing, so I'll just click on it, save the search if I like it, subscribe, and find other great stuff. Okay, one of the things you'll notice, they tweak the look of this website all the time, but it's not that great. It's not the best. It's far from the best way of looking at Twitter, twitter.com. It's okay, but there are plenty of other ways of accessing your information. Great iPad and Android apps, great iPhone apps from Twitter proper and from third parties. You should check out. TweetDeck is a very, very popular, if weird-looking system. So you can do things here. This is sort of like your command center if you want to use it, TweetDeck. So here I have it set up so that this is essentially, its first column is essentially my timeline. And then the subsequent columns are whatever the heck I want them to be. For example, this one is anytime I'm mentioned by anybody for any reason, it pops up here because I want to know about that. I'm interested in what people are saying about William Mitchell, so I have this search. And it turns out there are other irrelevant William Mitchells out there, but there's nothing we can do about that. WMCL Tech hashtag, I can monitor that and see what's popping up, and personal interests come up, things like whatever you want to have there, you can see all that. That's not something that you can do with twitter.com very easily on one page. And you can see now I've attached two separate Twitter accounts. One is my new one, SMC, whatever it was, and the other one is my primary. And I can also add my Facebook account here or other social networks if I want. You can have this be your social media dashboard if you want. Janelle really likes Hootsuite. I think that I'm becoming a convert, possibly. It looks nicer. It has built-in analytics, too, so it will tell you a lot of the same stuff that bit.ly tells you, as in who's looking at your tweets, which ones are making an impact, all that stuff. It also has the functionality, I know Janelle likes this a lot, where she wants to be tweeting, but it's not like, she doesn't want to tweet 10 things at once because she's going to spend half an hour on it and just flood everybody. So she schedules her Hootsuite to send them at certain intervals. So she's not annoying people, but she's still getting all that word out. You can do the same thing with adding streams about subjects that you like, a particular hashtag, for example, like we've done here in just your homepage, whatever. Anything else you want to say about Hootsuite?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The scheduling tweets is huge for me for my professional one, not for my personal one, because then you just kind of tweet when you think about it. But for my professional one, I read all my RSS feeds, you know, at set times in the day. So like first thing in the morning, I'll go through my RSS readers, and there'll be maybe 150 things in there to go through. And I might find, you know, 10 of them that I, as Burger Library, want to tweet. So then I can schedule them throughout the day and sort of forget about it until, you know, noon or whatever the next time is that I look at my RSS reader. And I think more people should, because I know there's some libraries out there and other accounts that just will tweet 10 things in a row, and I tend to then gloss over them.
Yeah.
So I think more people should probably be aware of the whole scheduling thing. And there are other apps. If you don't like Hootsuite, there are other apps that do that.
Okay.
But not the main Twitter interface. You can't do that on the.
Correct. Tweet chat. All right, so there are hundreds, no doubt, hundreds of other third-party applications like TweetDeck, like Hootsuite, that take advantage of the Twitter API, that take advantage of the information that's available from Twitter to massage it, to manipulate it, to present it in different ways. Tweet chat is one that I use every time there's a conference going on. The idea being that you put blinders on to the rest of your Twitter experience and you focus only on one hashtag. I don't care about all the other stuff, but I do care about WMCL Tech, and anything that pops up will pop up here, and that's the end of it. Very simple and easy. Oh, right. I mean, one thing that you can do, like I mentioned before, is you can, if you have a website, which I know you all do, then you can embed your Twitter feed. Now, do you think that that's useful information? If you're tweeting and you have a website, do you want to put a widget out there so that people might see it, and maybe it's another way for people to interact with you? Janelle mentioned before that virtually everybody who's blogging has a Twitter presence as well. So what is the goal of your website? Is it to be a content developer and a blogger? Is it just a static page? If it's more interactive, and if you're tweeting, then why not? Why not put them up there? And people know about it and can follow you and so on. Any reaction or thought about any of that?
Well, and I just say if you write a blog post, you may as well mention it on Twitter, because
Sure.
more people are likely to see it there than just on your blog or an RSS feed.
Yeah, self-promotion. I mean, if you have a thought, if you have an original thought, then why not get some mileage out of it? It doesn't take that long to tweet it. If you've written something as substantial as a decent blog post, then the point is for people to read it. So why not promote it in some way? If you're a counter kind of person, you want to feel like some validation of your efforts. You want to know that people are seeing your work and that they care. Well, you can count and mark your progress over time. The inevitable march to 1 million Twitter followers. I'm closing in. I'm so close. Like, you can taste it. But you can see that actually my path has been very slow growing. But this could be fascinating to you. And people who are really into, who do a lot of blogging will be monitoring very closely how they're reaching people. And this is part of it. Twitter Counter is one like that. Oh, this one, I couldn't figure out how to get a really good slide, so I'll show you. Let's see if I can. Twyla. Okay, so let's see if I can explain this well. So what happens is, this is free, and you can sign up for it, and you set it up, and what it does is it creates custom web pages for you based on the things that you tweet about, based on the hashtags you select, based on your tweets that have been most actively retweeted or commented on. So And amazingly, these things out there, twyla.com/simoncan/topics/attorneys, pop up in Google searches for my name. And then people go here and it looks like a website that is just kind of presenting my tweets about things. And why not? It's more self-promotion. It's kind of cool. And there's an easy way to, I want to follow Simon Can on Twitter. And you can see some of the other stuff that I've done too. And it's not anything special. It's just a presentation of my tweets on different subjects. It takes me exactly 0 work to accomplish.
Those of you who use Flipboard on the iPad,
Mhm.
it's sort of a similar idea. It's a Twilight is much
repackaging.
more robust in what it does, but the presenting of it is a repackaging of your stuff.
Yeah.
And it might look more pleasant to some people than Twitter does.
Yeah, I think it is more pleasant too. Oh, and this is one Janelle told me about yesterday, I think, or recently. Timely. This is really for the person who's not using Hootsuite, maybe, who is interested in scheduling tweets, essentially. A few words about ethics.
Okay, just a little bit about ethics. And we mentioned some of them earlier. There are ethics rules. You have to comply with them when you are a practicing attorney. There are more rules that are that probably will affect your social media use than the ones that I have here. This is just to give you a taste and to make you think about it. I'm really lucky in that I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a practicing lawyer, so I don't have to worry as much about some of these, but I know that you guys will when you're practicing attorneys. So advertising. When I'm tweeting out there, am I advertising? What are my bar rules say about advertising? Solicitation. And I told you earlier that one of the big points about Twitter is making contacts, right? And reaching out to people. Am I soliciting clients when I do that? Is that a no-no for my bar association? Representation. Twitter could raise issues about when representation of a client begins, and then you have to worry about attorney-client privileges, et cetera, et cetera. Confidentiality, I think, could be huge. And this is where I think you need to take some time and plan ahead of time. Okay, what is my voice going to be? What things am I going to send out there? How cautious am I going to be about some of these issues? And if you're a cautious, risk-averse person, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think you can still tweet and make yourself comfortable with the risks that you're willing to take. I've listed a couple of what I think are good articles on the ethics of Twitter, and you can, when Simon posts the slides, you can click on that Digo list down there and get the blog post that I found related to ethics. There's a really good local CLE called Social Media and Lawyer Ethics. The medium is not the message. And his sort of point is, and a lot of people have this view, is that social media is not really presenting new issues out there for ethics. You just have to analogize it to that's something that is familiar to everybody. For example, Michael Bradley analogizes posting something online that is publicly accessible, whether through Twitter or a blog, as similar to making a statement in a crowded restaurant, putting up flyers in public places, or shouting it from the steps of a courthouse, as opposed to making it at a private party or in an office meeting. So think of ways and research, people who really do know a lot about ethics issues, see what they're saying on it. The ABA has a new commission on ethics, and they're talking about some of these issues, so you'll probably want to check that out. Think about ways that your Twitter and your blog, when people realize that they're connected, are you tweeting about things and then expounding on them in your blog, where if people looked at the two of them separately, they might not make connections between you and who you represent, but if you put them together, can they make that connection? And is that going to put you in any hot water? And in Minnesota, and probably other states are like this too, you can submit a request for advisory opinion to the Office of Lawyers' Professional Responsibility if you have a question about whether or not something you do might run afoul of the ethics laws. Now you have to ask them this question before you do it. obviously, rather than asking them about past conduct. False or misleading statements is actually, I mean, again, if you set up your own rules for social media and what you're going to present and how you're going to present it, I think you can pretty easily not make false and misleading statements, but it has been known to happen. Don't lie.
Well, but if you are doing a pseudonym, right, and you friend somebody under that pseudonym and they don't know it's you, well, then you may have misrepresented that you're not an attorney. I mean, I think that's one that's really dicey.
Yeah, don't misrepresent yourself.
Well, so don't have a pseudonym? I mean,
Well, but I mean, I see what you're saying, but I still think, and you're right that people do run afoul of this. It just sort of boggles my mind but there's a lot out there that boggles my mind. So, I think the what jurisdiction controls can be really interesting too, because obviously there's no geographic boundaries to the web. The Minnesota ethics rules control you in Minnesota, but what you're doing on Twitter and your blog is, reaching people in Georgia. Is that a problem? And then the ABA, I told you probably want to look at that. And the Minnesota Lawyers Professional Responsibility Board is thinking about these issues, and I'm sure other boards are too, other state bar associations are too. So follow them, or not on Twitter in the Twitter sense, but know what they're writing about. And at least as of this time, the Minnesota board hadn't made too many proclamations about social media. They're more concerned about metadata issues and things like that. But they know that this is an issue. So again, contact them if you're scared that you might run afoul of the rules.
What do you think about that? Any general reactions, responses? Are you like gung ho? Are you ready to just dive into it? Yeah.
I guess for me, it just seems like a huge innovation of seemingly redundant methods of getting information out. And the confusing part is how to efficiently link them together so that you aren't doing that time stuff.
So, for example, you've got all these competing networks, and do you post it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on? One of the things that Neil showed me a while back was how you would tie your various accounts, at least with LinkedIn. They were doing this where you could tie all those accounts together. So essentially, when you did and you can certainly do it with Twitter and Facebook, where if you are doing a status update, you can have them appear in both places at once, which could be a good thing, or it could be annoying depending on if you're seeing it in both places, if you're a follower and a friend, and also again that runs into the problem of what is Facebook for, what is Twitter for. I mean, Rob Richards, I've mentioned him again. He's a guy who ties his Twitter and Facebook accounts together, and so he has status updates that are very kind of obscure, like information theory related things, and so I have to turn him off. I don't see I'm part of the problem now. I don't want to see that kind of stuff on Facebook, at least. But I mean, how would you deal with that? What's your thought? How does that speak to whether to get involved with Twitter?
But I can see I guess with Twitter I can see a role, but it just seems to me that the potential pitfalls are a little on the scary side, and that unless you really have the need to be able to, I think like we talked earlier about, there are attorneys out there who specialize in certain fields, and they'll publish. It's a way to, some of the stuff we talked about is a way to publish an article without having to go to the journal. You have a quick blurb on best practices on compliance issues or something like that. I could see where Twitter would be helpful there, because it's another way to get that. Hey, I wrote this top 10 reasons to, or top 10 needs of whatever. But if you're a small, practice and maybe you're not really active as much, I guess I don't see the real.
Don't you think that, I mean, it's important for solo practitioners and small firm lawyers to be active in networking? Yes, I mean, that's conventional wisdom. I think that I would have to agree with it. And then would you not say that increasingly as we move forward, those kinds of networking opportunities are going to be virtual more and more? So I think that, I mean, and I don't know if you're not saying to opt out entirely from digital. It's just, I think, figuring out where to spend your time most productively. And perhaps Twitter is not it, or it's not it for everybody. But some lawyers report that they have generated indirectly a lot of business this way and have really cultivated a good, solid network. But it might not happen for everybody. I mean, does anybody else have an opinion on that subject?
I do.
Yes. Oh, Neil.
Well, I mean, so I think rainmaking for small firms is always important. And I think if you have a topic that you are interested in or passionate about, it's a way to become known as an expert on that issue. And so whatever your interests are, that's just a way of publicizing that. And there's a new term, personal branding. Even if you're working for a large firm, I mean, in this day and age, you probably won't work for them until you retire.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of mobility. There's very little loyalty between employers and employees anymore. And so I think that it's in your interest to be known not just as, another one of the stack of lawyers at this firm, but you are an expert on this topic. You have your own following, your own clientele, so that makes you, more portable, more resilient, especially in an economic downturn. How do you distinguish yourself from, all these other law graduates? And so I think it is important to do it first right, and this is a way to do it for free, really. I mean, the tools are out there for the taking.
All right. For next time, this has got to be the most fun you're going to have with a homework assignment in your entire law school career, no doubt. What I'm hoping you'll do is you start using Twitter, just for a week. Tweet every day. Use the hashtag so that we can all see what you're tweeting about. Try to find if there are any relevant hashtags. Relevant meaning it could be just relevant to your professional interests, or it could be use your blog, your website topic as a framework for that, and try to figure out if there are conversations happening that you want to monitor. And if so, subscribe to them. Follow your classmates, and see if you can find others and follow other people who, and we're not talking about just, your favorite sports person or celebrity, but rather, or if you want to, but also people who think about it in terms of your professional life. Try to put a Twitter widget on your webpage. There's lots of instructions out there for that kind of thing, and you can, use my website as an example. And then find something out there that you think is pertinent and useful on the subject of social media for attorneys. Read it and tweet about it with the hashtag, remember, so that we can all see it. And that's it. And then we're going to come back next week and we're going to do more social media stuff leading towards a module concluding assignment in that area. Okay? Thanks, you guys. Have a great, great weekend.